All right. Welcome to episode number 3 of Native as I Can Be Between Two Cultures. I am your host, Gino Effin Ray. Some of you may remember when I used to call myself that all the damn time. Not so much anymore. So I've gotten a good response to the first 2 episodes, and I'm noticing that episode 2 is on pace to have more plays than episode 1. Looking at the amount of time that's passed since I uploaded it, comparing the two. So that's good. That's exciting. And of course, the other exciting news, if you don't have Facebook, is that I had to submit each episode to the good people at Apple for them to review and decide if they would put it on their platform. And as of yesterday, they did. They accepted it, which means, just for reference, there's 700,000 podcasts on the Apple platform. And that is, yes, a lot of competition. But what I see it as is that many podcasts has that big of an audience. So, and that many people clamoring to hear new information and new stories and new ideas. So that was a big deal to me. And I'm pretty excited about it because I've only just recently got into listening to podcasts, and that's the platform I choose to do it on. So, I'm excited. I think that's a big step and a chance to get more visibility, or whatever the audio equivalent of visibility is. Hearability, audio ability, ear ability. I don't know. So anyways, another thing I wanted to mention is I've been asked a few times now since I started doing this, kind of what is the point? Why am I doing this? What's the goal? The goal really is, this goes all the way back to when this was a documentary idea, and I wanted to travel across the United States and interview people that were important to the Native community, as a whole, or the ones that they live in. So, and I wanted to discuss what the biggest issues are for Native Americans today, where they saw the Native community 10 years down the road. That was, it was a Native thing. I'm Native. I wanted to increase awareness of what's happening in Native communities, because I don't think we are represented very well in media or anywhere. So I wanted to shine some light on the things happening in Native communities and how things are not always great. So if you think about, that's kind of where my head was at around 15, 20 years ago when I first had the idea. I still want to do that, but I think I don't think I need it to be that pointed anymore. And I don't know if that's because maybe I've matured some, or maybe I just have a bigger worldview than I did back then, but I still want to do that. I still want to raise the awareness and show people what's happening on reservations and what Native people are going through. But I also think that a bigger story can be told, and that's why I'm expanding to Two-Spirit people and plan on having talks with people that were adopted or gave I don't know if that's the right word, gave up a kid for adoption. I don't know if that's the right way to say that. But, and then what that's like to be coming into a family that you don't know, or, well, yeah, I can get into that more later, but I want to word that correctly, so I'll just stop right there. But so, and to get back to my point, the goal of the podcast now, and the reason I want to do it, is I want to examine all these things and basically just provoke thought. I'm not going to be militant. I'm not going to be political. I mean, I will have opinions, but I really just want to just paint a real picture of people's lives, whether that be on an individual level or as a culture or ethnicity. I want people to be able to tell their stories, and I want the listener to be able to come up with their own conclusion. And to get back to what I was saying about, I have opinions on things, and I may share those, I may not. One thing I'm going to do on this show is I will do my best to present factual information, which means I will do research, and if I state something on the show, I will make sure it's factual, or if I'm not sure what I am stating is fact, I will say, I don't know if that's true. I will say that's my perspective, or that's what I've heard, or so that's for the people listening to decide what to do with. I want it to be clear. I'm not really trying to sway anybody's opinion on anything on this show, at least as of this moment, and the ideas that I have for it. It's up for everybody to decide what they believe and what they don't believe, and I don't really feel like that's my job, or is it something I want to be my job, to steer people on what to think or believe. So that's where I'm at. So this week's episode is ought to be pretty good. We're going to be speaking to a friend of mine named Kenji Nitta. He's a Japanese man who happens to be a pastor, who also happened to dabble, or maybe even more than dabbled, in mixed martial arts. And I'm pretty sure the two ran concurrently, that he would be a pastor and a mixed martial artist at the same time. So if talking about, being in between two cultures, I think that's definitely wedged in between two cultures that seemingly are not alike. But I'm willing to bet that Kenji, who happens to be one of the smartest people I've ever met, I'm willing to bet he will have no problem finding parallels between being a pastor or religion and mixed martial arts and the practicing thereof. So he'll be calling from California, and so the audio will have a very much speakerphone being recorded by a speakerphone quality to it, because that's what it will be. Until I invest some money and upgrade into a better audio recording setup, that's what you're going to get. But the purpose of the show is to not show how skilled I am at editing audio. It's to have a voice and allow people to express themselves and their story, and I think I went over that before. So that's it. That's what's going on this week. Thank you for listening. Whatever platform you're listening on, and I appreciate it. So let's get right into it. Okay, everybody, here we are, episode 3, talking with my pal Kenji Nitta. Now, I want to point out, correct me if I'm wrong, Kenji, but I think this is the first time we've sat and talked since I moved from Boise to Portland, and I met you at the Sherry's or whatever it was, right, in Ontario.
Yeah.
I don't think we've sat and had a conversation. I mean, we've interacted on Facebook, but I think this is the first time we've had a real conversation. Does that sound right?
Yeah, now that you mention it, it is.
Yeah, so it's been a while, and I think here's what's oh, by the way, Kenji, I want to point out something too before we get too far into this. I'm wearing right now, as we speak, an all black Adidas jacket with a Boys and Girls Club logo on the sleeve. Do you still have yours?
Yep, totally. I paid for that shirt in blood, sweat, and tears.
Yes. So we got
mostly
tears, yeah, and dodgeballs to the face.
Yeah.
We got smoked in a dodgeball tournament, but they kind of threw us a bone and gave everybody on the team these sweet Adidas jackets, I think for best hair or for best costume or something like that. Whatever it was.
I remember I was kind of the assembler and the fearless leader of that group, and I think I assembled the worst dodgeball team that ever dodgeball.
But we got some killer jackets out of it.
Yeah, totally worth it.
So I thought we could get into you've listened to the podcast mine before, right?
Yeah.
At least some of it.
Yep.
So the overlying theme being caught between two cultures or existing between two cultures, mm-hmm. And I thought about you being a former mixed martial artist and pastor as sort of being, that kind of fits the mold, or being a Japanese American.
Yeah.
But I think we could probably go deeper than that. So, to start, why don't you explain kind of what you've done in the past as far as social work or work with the church, just kind of where you're from and any educational accomplishments, things like that.
Sure. Well, I think the first accomplishment I should mention is I was the 4th grade spelling bee champion at my elementary school, and that was pretty sweet. But I got to the regional spelling bee and I misspelled the very first word, and so I had to go home in shame, especially as an Asian. You can't go out that early.
No.
But I was born in Seattle, grew up there till I was 5, and then we moved over to the east side of Washington State, and at that point, I kind of didn't know what to call it at the time, but I was already in this third culture. Like, I didn't feel like I had a home culture, and I didn't really feel like I was a part of this new one, because we moved in with my family, and my family, they're all like Okie rednecks from the old school. So my grandma came over out west during the Dust Bowl from Oklahoma in the 1920s, and they're just pure country, like everything you could imagine. And I learned a lot from them, but because I wasn't totally from that world, and I'm a minority, so that was kind of strange fitting in there. And then when I was 8 years old, we moved into these housing projects in another city, and the housing projects was about 85-90% Mexican. And so I made best friends in that housing projects, but it was weird too because I didn't speak Spanish, and I didn't feel like I fit in there, so I felt already like I was fitting in with the new culture. And then I became best friends with a family there, the Mendozas. And I was 13, and I moved to Cheney, Washington, which is a college town. And in Cheney, Washington, I went back from being around mostly Mexicans to being around mostly white people. And by that time, I was more Mexican than anything else, probably. And it was weird getting into this kind of upper middle class, white population. That was strange. I remember when I went to my new school, everybody thought I was a gangster for some reason, even though I wasn't. But they just kind of assumed I was, because it was me and like 3 other kids who weren't white. And so I went to that school for a while. And like you mentioned, I got into martial arts at a young age. And then right after high school, I converted to Christianity. I didn't grow up in the church at all. I was actually an atheist and a practicing Zen Buddhist through high school. And so after I converted to Christianity, I went into the church world. And it wasn't just the church world, it was the evangelical church world of a bunch of white boomers. And so I remember, me and you probably grew up on a lot of the same music, like Wu-Tang Clan, EPMD, Cypress Hill. And I remember the first music album I ever got was an NWA album. And so the first time I went to church, there was no NWA there, and I was amazed. It was a bunch of, it was just really strange music and strange behavior, and I didn't understand this kind of, it was an upper middle class, mostly white collar people who were the age of my parents. And I was that one guy at church. There was me and Levon. Levon was a black dude, and then there was me. And everybody was older, and it was just a very strange, weird world that I had to figure out. And, of course, I was rough around the edges. So the church world seemed kind of like a foreign land to me again. And I don't know why, but I always find myself in these situations where I don't totally feel at home in the new world, and I didn't really know where my home was in the old one. And so I'm just kind of in this third space. And so now I've been a pastor for a long time, and I can navigate the church world finally. But I still feel at times like I'm almost at home in the church, but I kind of have a foot in the world. And I don't know if I've ever quite really settled yet. But that's kind of my strange story about being this cultural drifter that never got deep roots and really felt totally at home anywhere when he first showed up.
Well, this is a direct quote from you. You have said that you are a theologian, a Bible scholar, local church pastor, and a really good break dancer. And,
yep, that's true.
And a bipartisan mocker.
Yeah.
So, this was my favorite quote of yours, and I don't know if this was the same. By the way, I'm pulling these quotes. Kenji has a YouTube channel called Reverend Kenji, Conversations and Sermons About Jesus and Other Stuff. And this is where I thought we could go a little deeper, because I think it was the sermon about passion. You said, I want to help the world, and I kind of want to burn it all down at the same moment.
Yeah.
And you talked about a lot of stuff in that sermon. But that one to me was if there's anything that's living between two cultures, I'd say that those two extremes you'd be firmly in between there. Yeah, I think that fits. Yeah, I forgot to go through my educational stuff. I do have a bachelor's in social and behavioral sciences from George Fox University, and then I have my master's degree in theology and leadership from Gonzaga University. But I think I don't know, man. I'm like this walking bundle of contradictions, you know. I think most of the people who are mostly jaded by the world are the ones who want to help it the most. And, so we kind of wade into this I don't know, I want to say the ugly side of humanity, Mm-hmm. And we see some of the dark stuff, and we tend to be more sensitive to it. And as we wade into it, sometimes it can, it can, what's the word? I think, like in my spiritual life, I know I'm supposed to be a perfect, super spiritual pastor, but if I'm being honest, I think I've accumulated a lot of resentment towards God that I've had to work out as I go along.
with him, because I just see all these things in the world that frustrate me, and all these things in the world that I wish he would just fix, because he's supposed to be a ninja, you know?
Right.
And I wish he would fix it all. And then, of course, I know the theology that, you know, it's good to feel that pain. It's good to feel the hurt with other people so you can be compassionate and enter into the suffering and be present with them. And I know that God wants to use us to help the world, and I get all that, but sometimes in my heart I wish he'd just use magic and fix it instantly. But because he doesn't, sometimes I just want to blow it all up instead. At the same time, I'm trying to help it.
Right, snap your fingers and eliminate half the population.
Yeah.
Like so was there ever an overlap in your MMA career and your pastoral duties?
Yeah, there was. One church, I started a church. We call it church planting. I started a church called Open Arms Church, and it was an inner city church. And actually, out of the church itself, we'd have church on Sunday. Then we'd move all the pews out of the way, because during the week we use the sanctuary as a fight gym. And so we'd move all the pews, we'd lay out all the mats, and then we would train in church during the week. Then we'd roll the mats, clean up the blood, put the pews back, and we talk about Jesus on Sundays. So I did that for several years, and I loved it, man.
SureDog.com has you listed with a professional record of 0-1, with a height of 0 feet tall, 0 inches, and 0 pounds. But so is that the fight in Montana?
Yeah.
You only had the one pro fight? I thought you had more than that.
So I have an amateur record of 8-4. So I fought about 12 amateur fights, and that one fight we did in Montana, that's the only pro fight I ever had.
Oh, okay. I thought you had more for some reason. Yeah, that was my only pro fight too, by the way, and we made a decent amount of money for maybe a grand total of 5 minutes in the ring between the two of us. But we only trained for a grand total of about an hour, I think. I think the drive to Montana took longer than the actual amount of time we spent getting ready for that fight.
Yeah, we did not take that fight seriously. Yeah. It was fun, though.
Yeah, we had a blast. We might have to tell the it's over story by the end of this podcast. But
I think we probably have to.
Yeah. So, getting back to the pastor. So, the pastor thing. So, just watching you do your thing is very conversational and relaxed, it seems like. And there's a full sleeve tattoo and some Chuck Taylors going on. Has there been any like backlash, or has it ever been like maybe you just weren't for some people because of a more, I don't know if you'd call that a modern approach, or relaxed, or maybe not as fire and brimstone? Have you had any kind of backlash from that?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was a new Christian, I was kind of celebrated in the church, to be honest, because I was kind of like a diversity hire, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so they were glad I was in the church, because I was different from them, different color skin, different attitude, different age, and so they were actually really happy to be able to welcome in somebody so different than them. And but also I was brand new, and I came out of this, I don't know, this I was a very angry young man, as opposed to being an angry old man like I am now. So I was like a angry young man, and they had a lot of grace with me because I was new. But now that I'm a pastor, basically all that grace is gone, because I've gone from I went from kind of a new convert and somebody who they knew had a rough background for sure, to now I'm supposed to be kind of this avatar of their faith, this kind of mediator, like a representative of their evangelical culture. And, theologically I am pretty conservative, but culturally I'm pretty liberal. I grew up in kind of a rough way, and I grew up listening to different kinds of music and living just a different way than them. And so I think I think there's at least a few people who would love it if I was probably more polished, and I was probably more presentable, and I was a little less honest about my doubts and my struggles and my relationship with God from the pulpit when I'm preaching. But I just don't like to pretend I'm somebody I'm not. And so I think God can handle all my doubts. He can handle all my quirks and idiosyncrasies. And so I don't pretend to be an expert or guru, but I just like to be honest about the things I've learned and the things I'm learning and kind of the journey I've walked so far. But a lot of people don't like that because they want certainty on every issue. They want me to look a certain way. They want me to speak a certain way when I'm preaching. But, there's plenty of churches out there with people who are polished like that, so they're always welcome to go to one of those.
Has there ever been a point where, and maybe there's been many points like this, where you're looking out as you're doing your thing, and you just say, this isn't working, and want to turn your back on it?
Yeah, I actually left the ministry for a couple of years, and that's because that church I told you about I had in the inner city. I left that church because I was working a couple of jobs, going to school full time. I had 3 young kids at home, and I was running my martial arts school, and I was being a pastor. So basically, I was just working way too much. Mm-hmm. And my family was paying the price. So I decided to let go of one of my jobs and to let go of my church work. And when I left that church, it was a very dark time for me because I felt like God had betrayed me. I remember at the time thinking that here I am busting my ass in the inner city, helping people who are, addicted and hurting and broke and poor. And those are the people God cares about. He loves them a lot. And at the same time, he got these fat preachers on TV with, 5 Rolexes on their hand, driving caddies. And I remember having problems with God. Like, why would he give them all the success and make me struggle so much when I'm closer to the people who are closer to his heart? So I was pretty spiritually immature back then, and I had some hard lessons to learn. But, I remember being really angry with God at the time. And when the church closed, I actually went into depression for several months. And I just worked my blue-collar jobs and tried to finish school. And then I ended up getting a job in Boise, Idaho. And I moved there and kind of got into the social worker world for a couple of years. And that's where we met. It's when I was working at the company. And it was a good break for ministry. And in time, I realized I wanted to be back in the game. And I did some growing up during that dark period. So big picture was really good for me. But I actually did turn my back on the church world for a while. And at some point I realized that even though I don't totally feel at home in church culture, that maybe God still had a role for me there. And that, it was the best way I felt equipped to help people. So I went back to it.
Yeah. Do you ever concern yourself with... how long do you prep for? How long are your sermons? Like 45 minutes or 40 minutes?
Yeah, about that.
You spend all week on those? Because then I noticed you didn't have any kind of notes with you.
Yeah, no, my sermon prep I would not recommend to anybody. I have a very strange approach. But I just read like a madman all the time, and I like to be very thoughtful on the subjects I'm preaching on. And so my sermon prep is I'll outline my sermon after I get the idea. So I usually go through several drafts of an outline, and then I just preach it. So outlining my sermons takes about, 4 to 6 hours until I settle on something I'm really happy with. But what a lot of preachers do is they'll outline their sermon, they'll put in all the illustrations, they'll write down the transitional sentences, they'll nail the introduction and conclusion, and I don't do any of that other stuff. Some preachers actually write out every word they're going to say. And I know preachers who spend 20, 30 weeks on a sermon every week. And I don't do that. I spend a lot of time with people, and I spend a lot of time with books. And so what I do is I get a good outline I think is going to be effective, and then I just preach it. And so all the illustrations come to me that day as I'm preaching it. And the transitions, I just do them on the fly. And so I like preaching that way because it's spontaneous. It keeps me in the moment. And my preaching style is it's a very earthy, authentic, honest preaching style. And so, honestly, I just like not being as polished. I don't know if anybody else likes it, but that's how I do it.
Well, yeah, that's why I was wondering sort of, with that style, if there was any kind of backlash. And I also wondered, because you've done this to me before, do you ever worry yourself about going over people's heads with the message or the content?
If anything you write or create content-wise, I put the audience at the very center of what I'm doing. And although I have this online audience and people who listen to me from former congregations and all kinds of stuff, I focus on the people in the room mostly. And so I tailor my sermons to my audience. But even among my audience, there's people at all different levels. So sometimes I got to maybe simplify concepts. Sometimes I need to overcome objections. Some people can handle, they're more abstract in nature in the way they think, so I can get a little more nerdy. So I kind of have to think about how to hit every note as I'm preaching, so I can have a point of contact with everybody in the room. And, I'm also thinking of their life situations and what could be most helpful to them. So I know at times I'm speaking over some people's heads, and then I know that sometimes I might be sounding too basic for some people. But I have to do my best to try and have a point of contact with everybody in the room. So that's what I do.
Well, I hope we're not getting too churchy for my audience or any audience, which seems like a really kind of a hilarious way to offend people. But I want to mention, too, that you have a book. It's available on Kindle called Hearing God, Discovering a Practical Guide to Developing a Powerful Prayer Life, Spiritual Formation for Everyone. So how long did it take to write the title to that book? I
think the title took longer than writing the actual book. But yeah, I still have a lot of, actually most of my friends are not in the church world. And so I still spend a lot of time with people outside the church. And so as a pastor, I found that a lot of people who do go to church, they have a hard time connecting with God on a personal level. And so that's a book I wrote, just a super brief book. It could be a pamphlet probably, but it was just to help give them a practical method, a practical way to maybe incorporate more direct connection with God in their spiritual lives.
Well, I do think for non-church going people, or maybe even church going people, that there is something uncomfortable about the whole idea of it. At least there always was for me. And that's not to say I'm not a spiritual person now. I think I probably am more now than I ever was before, just in the last couple years. But I was somebody that was really put off by overly churchy people.
Yeah.
The friendliness, and it just, it just made me uncomfortable. And I think for that reason alone, I was probably, I will say for that reason, and just to kind of be in vogue, I was sort of anti-church, it just seemed like, in your 20s, that's a good time to be that way.
Yeah.
But that's what I also liked about kind of going through your sermons, because I'd never heard one before. I never went to one of your services or anything, obviously, and I totally dug just that kind of conversational style and making the Bible seem less imposing and relatable. It seemed more relatable than to have somebody kind of break it down. Do you think that obviously helps, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's kind of like, this is a nerdy analogy, but, Aristotle is usually a lot easier to read than the people who write about Aristotle. And, Jesus, if you read what he actually said, it's actually pretty clear, and it's brilliant stuff, but it's pretty accessible too. I mean, he was a blue-collar guy from the country in the ancient Near East, so he's ethnically, he's this Asian guy, who's and he didn't look like Kenny Loggins. You know, he looked like a Middle Eastern dude from 2,000 years ago. No offense to Kenny Loggins. I mean, he's a beautiful man, but
he's a
yeah, for sure. But you know, Jesus was this brown Asian dude from the Middle East back in the day, and when he was teaching to farmers, to other blue collar workers, to normal people with real problems. And so his ideas are actually really accessible. I think a lot of preachers and churchy folks, I don't know, they overcomplicate it. And so I just try and, when I'm preaching, I just try and get out of the way and try and get Jesus to speak for himself as much as I can. I don't know how successful I am, but yeah, I think hopefully it helps some people.
Let's get back to MMA for a minute. So how old did you say how old were you when you got into mixed martial arts?
Let's see, I started Thai boxing when I was a kid. That was actually my second style. My first style was Taekwondo for a few months. Then I found this weird old man from Thailand he's a white guy, but he lives in Thailand, who taught Thai boxing from his garage. So I started training with Ajahn Steve, and I did Thai boxing for a long time. Then in high school, I got into different styles when I moved. I got to Kyokushin, which is a kind of violent karate style, when I was in high school and lived in Cheney, that college town I talked about. Excuse me. And then, what year was it? Probably just about 98 or 99, I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that's when I started drifting towards the MMA world. And I think it was a year or so after I started training when I had my first fight. Yeah, loved it.
Was there anybody pushing you towards MMA, or was that just something like, well, maybe I might be able to do this?
Yeah, I just moved into I moved into Spokane again, and so I was thinking, well, I want to get into another style, you know. So I thought either judo or jiu-jitsu, and I found a jiu-jitsu school close to me that was legit. It was a Machado black belt, and so I went there and started studying jiu-jitsu with him, and I just loved it. And so, like most people, I started out recreationally, just doing it for fun. But you know, if you're competitive, eventually you want to test out what you've learned and see how good you are. So that's when I started getting in consensual fights, and it was pretty awesome.
Consensual fights, yeah. I'm still, when people were asking me what was going on with this week's episode, and I said, well, I'm going to be talking with a pastor who does mixed martial arts, or did mixed martial arts, and kind of the reaction was, well, I could see, a pastor, you know, wanting to be disciplined, and I'm saying, no, he got in a cage and fought people. I'm not saying he was doing Tai Chi out in the, and they were like, oh, well, okay, yeah, that adds a different wrinkle to it. But yeah, like I was saying, I didn't really start to think, I thought we would be talking mostly about, you know, that aspect, being a pastor and being a cage fighter, as they like to put it, or just being Japanese American. And I had known you had lived in a kind of a barrio, for lack of a better word, and so I thought we would kind of talk about that. And then the more I got into it, and I think mostly from watching your sermons, that's when I was like, there's more to it than just those two things. Like, those two things are there, you know. But I think being a pastor, but having I don't know, mixed views on religion or how it's presented is maybe the bigger story.
Gotcha. Yeah. I remember going to a pastor's meeting once, and it was the day after one of my fights, and my face was all busted up. And there was a guy on the side. He kept quoting Bible verses at me from the side of his mouth, you know, about not brawling and things like that. And he was judging me hardcore, you know. He was a nice guy. He loved me, but you know, he wasn't sure if there should be a violent pastor that was in this meeting. And so eventually he came out that it did MMA as a sport, and of course he had no idea what it was, and we started talking through it. But yes, it is kind of it's a weird combination to be in, is that MMA. I kind of joked with people. My deal was, first I would convert people to God, and then I would send them to God before they had a chance to backslide. And so
did you bring any of do you bring any of your time as a social worker into how you practice as a pastor?
Yeah, quite a bit of it, actually. I grew up in a family that was riddled with addiction, still is, and I grew up around a lot of people who struggle with addiction. In fact, my best friend's dad, he got shot by his brother in Mexico when they were both drunk. And so there was some pretty severe loss in that family because of addiction. And so, a lot of social work is dealing, in my mind, a lot of social work is dealing with the effects of either addiction or fatherlessness. And so I grew up without a father myself. My dad took off when I was 5. And I don't directly remember what he looks like. I have a picture or two, and that's about it. And then he died in 1997, so I never really knew him. So, I kind of grew up in that world my whole life. And then when I went into church, at first I kind of felt like these were people who had all their crap together. Because like I said, they were older, they were professionals, they had money. Compared to what I grew up with, they had these huge houses, and I kind of thought they had it all together. And I felt like I didn't fit in. But the more I got into church life, the more I realized that, coming from an atheist background, I kind of hated Christians. And I went to church, and I kind of hated them for what they had done to so many people throughout history. Mm-hmm. And I hated them for all the wars they had started. And I didn't trust them. And at first I thought everybody was fake. And then I got to the point where I realized, well, there's actually a lot of nice people here, but they don't understand anything about life because they've had everything given to them. That's kind of the assumption I had, and that's why they were rich. Yeah. And they were white, so they didn't have to struggle. And I had all these prejudices. And as I started moving more and more into pastoral work, I realized that these are just human beings who deal with a lot of the same crap I did. I have one guy who was a successful businessman, and his daughter OD'd. And that's when I realized, oh crap, like these people know what this is about too. Right. And I realized that these weren't people starting wars or being hateful, that most of these people in these buildings on Sundays, they're just people trying to make it through the week like the rest of us. And they find comfort and strength in God, and they have beliefs about that. But I found that my time in social work, it helped me a lot in my pastoral work, and then my pastoral work really prepared me for the social work I was doing as well, because when you work with people and you just see people, and you cut past all the surface crap we use to kind of put people in categories and boxes and decide, who might deserve our attention, who might not, who deserves help, who doesn't, and you get past all that, and you just realize we're all human beings trying to make it, then I think that was helpful both ways for me.
That's interesting. Yeah, I just thought they probably go hand in hand. And
I actually still do a lot of social work as a pastor. We have a lot of people with a lot of practical struggles. I remember my friend David, he struggled with schizophrenia, and that fool could never stay on his meds, and so he was out of it a lot of the time. And so, that was, the church basically became his social safety net, because he couldn't keep a job and he would get in trouble with the law. And, of course, his house was a total mess and in disrepair. And, being off his meds so much, he couldn't keep his crap together. So our church kind of became a social safety net, and he had fallen through the cracks in terms of social service help. And so the whole church kind of became his therapeutic community and his case managers and his social workers. And I've seen stuff like that happen quite a bit in the church world.
That's very interesting. Yeah, it seems like the goal, the end result, you would probably want to be the same, I guess, in some regards. But let's see. So, did you get in a lot of trouble as a kid, or were you just kind of just like serious trouble, or were you just kind of just a wild kid?
Let's see. I guess you could have called me a wild kid because we did a lot of bad stuff. But honestly, my mom was a single mom with 2 kids, and she was usually working and going to school full time. So like she didn't have a chance when it came to me and my brother.
Yeah.
Like we were just so we never really had a curfew, didn't have a lot of rules, and so but yeah, we did a lot of bad stuff. We never got caught for barely any of it. I have friends who have done time and stuff, but thankfully I just never got busted for anything. So yeah, but we grew up. I ended up very comfortable with violence. We should probably put it that way. Too comfortable with violence, and that's kind of the world I grew up in.
What does she think about what you've done with your life?
Yeah, she's really proud of me and my brother both. My brother is also in a helping profession. He's a nurse. And, I think she's proud of us. And I'm proud of her because being she's what can be considered like a poor, lower class, white mom who raised 2 kids on her own. And it's no easy thing to do. And me and my brother are blessed to have materially better lives than she had growing up. And we can kind of provide for our kids and hopefully change the direction of our family that it's had so far in terms of the addiction and all that stuff. But when you compare cultures, like lower white class America, they have a lot more in common with, say, lower class black America than they do with upper middle class white America.
Right. And
so, she's my hero just because raising 2 kids on her own and working so hard. And, I've been blessed with a real strong mom. She's very damaged, but she's also the strongest woman I know. So she's really proud of us, and I'm really proud of her.
And your wife, Michelle, is Latina, right?
Yep. She's Mexican.
And didn't you tell me, I thought you told me one time that she sort of grew up somewhat removed from the Latino community.
Yeah, she's what my friends would have called a coconut growing up. Yeah, I was more Mexican than her when we met.
So has she done any kind of reconnecting or getting to know that side of her?
Not a lot, to be honest. She's a lot more comfortable in that world now because a lot of our people work as well as Chicanos, and so she's comfortable in that world now. But Spokane, which is a city she grew up in, it's a very white city. It's well over 90% Caucasian, and so as opposed to the city I grew up which was called Pasco, and we used to call it Old El Pasco. It's more than half the city is Latino, mostly Mexicans, and so now that we've done a lot of ministry. And she actually did a lot of ministry with me in the Tri-Cities later in life. So she's real comfortable in that culture now. But she doesn't totally identify with that either.
Right.
So, yeah, she's kind of in that third space that you're specializing in, too.
Yeah. It's a weird space to be in, but...
It is.
I think that's all I had. So now if there was like one message or theme from the Bible or from Christianity that you thought was of more importance than any other one, what would that be and why?
I think in this moment right now, I think the idea of just the sociology that Jesus addressed. So, we're humans and we tend to gather in groups, and it's important for us as we grow up and find our identity that we find a group to identify with. And most groups they circle the wagons and they're themselves, and then it's human nature to kind of vilify groups on the outside. To take groups on the outside and make them seem evil or different or other than somehow.
Yeah.
And so now I see all this division in the world now, with people being obsessed with Trump, with evangelicals and liberals, and then with people of different races, and see these protests on college campuses. I mean, there's so much going on now where we've stopped seeing each other. And I think that hatred where we we feel like it's okay to hate other people because we're right. We kind of have this self-righteousness to where it's okay to judge other people or to push them away or to hate them or just to label them, which is very lazy.
Right.
And I think of the life that Jesus lived. And when you think about it theologically, Christians historically believe that Jesus is actually God. And so, not just some guy who went around teaching good stuff, but we actually believe he was God at one point and that he became a man. And so it doesn't get much other than God and humans. You think of God as this other creature who's different than all other things, or this other creator who's different from all other creatures. And you see that he became a man and entered our world on purpose so that he could communicate love to us. And the cross is really important in Christianity, of course. And that for us, that's a symbol of love, that God was willing to literally bleed and to die for us. And that he did that in our language. He became a human. He walked in dusty earth. He spent time with real people. And this was all to communicate his love for the other, the love for people who were outside of him and in some sense distanced from him. And I think if there's any message I could share from the Bible right now, it would be that we need to learn how to love the other and to understand and see the other, as opposed to just being obsessed with being right all the time. I think it'd be better if we were more focused on being helpful. And that's church people, non-church people. I see this hate become pretty acceptable and common now everywhere. And I think one of the struggle that third culture kids like us face is it's hard for us to integrate an identity, because we didn't grow up with a real firm cultural framework. But a strength it gives us is we're able to move in and out of culture as well, and we get pretty resilient because we've had to learn to adapt through our lives. So if I could apply that to the world at large, I know there's people who are super far left, there's people who are super far right. People have different views on, like, gun control is a big thing now because we just had another mass shooting and they happen too much. You got marginalized populations, So if I could share one message, it would be that I hope we can get to a place to where we can let go of a lot of the fear, a lot of the separation, a lot of the hatred, and we can find a way again to disagree with each other without losing our humanity, and where we can see each other and really be with each other and try and learn and understand and listen to each other as opposed to just trying to win.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. Well, and to your point, here in Portland, there's a protest every other weekend. I mean, these guys aren't just waving signs at each other. They're starting to, they've been getting rowdy for a couple years now, and people are getting hurt, and I think I definitely do this. I mean, if I see for example, a large pickup driving down the street, I automatically have assumptions about the person driving that pickup.
Sure,
I don't see them as a dad or a brother or I just have an opinion, and I am pretty sure I'm not going to like that guy. And I think that's obviously pretty common. Not necessarily about big trucks, but just painting a picture of somebody before you get to know them.
Yeah, and I understand the psychology of it. Being a member of a tribe is really important to us as humans. And a part of that is setting ourselves up against other tribes. And so I get how primal and necessary this dynamic is just to human nature. But I think we need to rise above it and love more.
Absolutely. Well, on that touchy-feely note, so your podcast, again, Reverend Kenji, Conversations and Sermons about Jesus and other stuff. So I found that on YouTube. Is that anywhere else? Any other?
Yep, it's on iTunes, Spotify, all the Stitcher. It's on all the Google Play. It's on all the podcast platforms as well. And a lot of this content I publish at my website too, which is reverendkenji.com.
Okay, so listen to my podcast, then go listen to his podcast.
Yeah, listen to Gino's first.
I'm trying to build an audience here. And then you have your book, Hearing God, Discovering a Practical Guide to Developing a Powerful Prayer Life, Spiritual Formation for Everyone. That is available on Amazon for Kindle only.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So I think we got to close with our Butte, Montana story.
Yeah, we have to. Our story from Butte.
Butte, Montana.
Butte.
Which is,
you want to tell it, or you want me to tell it?
Why don't you start, and then we'll just kind of we'll fill in the gaps. Butte, Montana. Butte, Montana, by the way, is the birthplace of Evel Knievel. It's important to mention that.
Yeah, and it's really has a rich, deep cultural heritage, and it's kind of a mecca for Montana for people who love all things beautiful. So Butte is like the armpit of Montana. It's this mining town, and me and Gino had a fight there once, and so we drive. I don't know. It felt like about 40 hours to get there,
right?
And we get to Butte, and Gino has this fight before mine. And we brought along Gino's pops, and we thought it'd be cool if we had this old Indian who was our corner man, because it could look like we had this mystical training style. And so
from episode 1, by the way, the one and the same.
Yeah, the one and the same. And so he's our corner man, but he doesn't know anything about fighting. All he knows is what he's seen on TV and in movies. And so we fight, and Gino, he lost, and it wasn't his fault. The light got in his eyes.
Let me back up a second, though, because here's how we prepared Pop for his role as a corner man. I gave him a black and mild cigar to chew on. I took a white towel from the hotel and threw that on his shoulder. And then, of course, he had what he calls his stingy brim, which is, I guess, a style of fedora. And then to further prepare himself, he had a pint of black velvet in his inside coat pocket.
Yeah.
So that's what we were working with, and he did. He looked like an Indian version of Mickey from the Rocky series. He did.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, he fit the mold perfectly. But yeah, so yeah, go ahead. I lost the fight by knockout.
Yeah, and of course, every corner man has a water bottle. And so he has this water bottle, and we're in the ring after the fight when Gino's just dejected, because losing a fight sucks. And we're in there. They're announcing his opponent. His name was Lear Basir, another Indian, actually.
Great
but
guy
they announced
too,
him as,
yeah,
he is awesome. And they announced him as the winner. And, Gino is just at his lowest low right there because he had hopes to win. He lost the fight. It's in front of all these people, and out of nowhere.
Well, and also, I thought, and I still kind of think this, that the fight was stopped too early.
Yeah. So he was mad about that because it was a flash knockout, right? Yeah. So you weren't totally out.
Yeah, I hit the ground, but I was immediately back up, and the fight was being waved off at that point. So not in very good spirits at that point.
And I'm looking around because I'm actually the next fight, and I need to warm up soon because I'm not going to get a proper warm-up before my fight because of the way they scheduled it. So I'm just thinking of getting out of the ring and warming up. So I'm looking around, and I look to my left, and I see Gino and his pops there, and then all of a sudden I see this huge splash just ricochet off of Gino's face. And what had happened is his dad had just thrown a bunch of water in his face. Just basically randomly out of nowhere.
Like I was on fire.
Yeah. And, of course, we didn't know why the hell he did that. And so Gino, who's already upset, he looks at me and he looks at us and he's like, "What'd you do that for?" and as Pops is throwing the water in Gino's face, he's going, he just goes, "It's over." And then he just douses him with all this water. Yeah, he says, "It's over." And he just splashes all this water in his face. And Gino looks at him, he looks at me and goes, "Get him the hell out of here." And, of course, I'm not going to grab his dad and drag him out of the ring against his will, so I just let it go. But we asked him afterward, "Why did you do that? Like, what came in your mind?" And his only answer was, "Well, that's what they do in the movies."
Yeah. It's a moment I'm going to recount. Yeah, that was this. I did not see it coming. It was this sploosh. Yeah, and then that's what they do in the movies. And I think he said, I got a little caught up in the moment or something, something to that effect. But he took it upon himself to get into the cage, which he hadn't been into the cage at that point. He didn't come in like when I was being introduced or anything. He just climbed in with a full bottle of water directly in the face from about 3 inches away.
Yeah, there was a good crowd that night because there was probably 1,300 people in the stands. Like, it was a good show.
Yeah.
And so there's the lights, there's everyone cheering and yelling. Yeah, I could see how he'd get carried away, but
he took it very seriously, his role as the corner man.
Yeah, he did the one thing he knew how to do, and that was throw water in Gino's face.
Yeah. That's a moment. That's probably one of the all-time classic pop moments, and there's been many, but that's the one I'm probably going to tell. When I'm delivering a eulogy, because that kind of sums it up. That sums up his life. He got a little carried away. That's him. So. Well, that was a fun trip. We had a lot of fun in Butte.
Yeah, we did.
Despite, I also remember we had went to a restaurant, just to have a bite to eat. I think it was the day before the fight, maybe, or the day after. And we sat down at the restaurant, and the prices were a little higher than we were expecting. And we all kind of looked at each other, well, should we get up and leave? Like, what should we do? Well, then Pop stands up and starts acting confused. He starts doing this, like, where are we at? What are we doing? So I grab him by the arm, and I'm kind of leading him out. It'll be okay, Pop. No, it's fine. And people are looking up at him, and somebody, is he okay? I'm like, he's fine. No, we're just going to get out of here. We're just going to get out of here rather than go, this is way too expensive for what they're offering. So he pulled that one out of his stingy brim, and we used, the confused old man routine. But yeah.
Yeah, it saved his face because we were able to just get this old confused man safely home as opposed to just saying it was too expensive.
Right, yeah.
But, I'm not sure how much of that was an act, because when we were chilling in Butte, walking around the day of, he would just wander off into the middle of the street and start looking around.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, you did. And it's like we didn't exist. He would just wander off and start looking around, standing in one spot, shuffling in different directions, just eyeballing stuff. And he had a little shake to him going on. It was just the funniest thing.
Well, and he wouldn't be on, like, the corner of the sidewalk. He would be two-thirds of the way out into the street, but not looking up the street or down the street. He'd be looking sort of cattywampus over. That's, you never really could tell what he was focused on, but he would just do it. He would just, and I predicted it when we started walking around. I said, "Watch this. He's going to stop some weird place, and you'll just see him looking around." And we were walking, and then a couple blocks, and there he was, 2 blocks behind us, just standing there, looking around.
Yeah. I remember thinking it's like he had a lover back here when he was in his teens, and he was looking for her after all these years. I was like, I don't know what he's doing.
Oh, I think I remember what it was, though, because I think every place we stopped, he kept going, I think that bar I was at was right around here.
Yeah.
Like, he said that 6 different times. I think that was the bar that I stopped in at. And I'm like, Jesus, you said that every bar we've passed. Maybe you stopped in all of them.
Didn't he have a story about the bar? Like some guy had threatened him too or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember every bar he thought was the bar. Yeah. It was hilarious.
Yeah, that was a good trip. That was well worth the knockout, I think.
Yes, it was.
And my face was fine, and yeah, it was fun. Made a little money, but it was a trip, That was
the trip. That was worth it.
Yeah. Okay, man. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, I had fun. This was good. If you want somebody on your show that doesn't know much about the stuff you're talking about, I'm game.
Cool.
All right, that was Kenji Nitta. My name is Gino Ray. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Stay tuned next week for another very exciting episode where I will have a very exciting special guest lined up. Like and subscribe. I don't really care if you like and subscribe. Just listen to it. Enjoy it. email any questions or comments to thegenoshow@gmail.com. See ya.